Hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. I hope everybody's doing well. Okay, so I'm just going to give another couple minutes, not another couple, another minute for anybody to get in our live. We have an interesting topic today. It's kind of the second part of the live I did in January, which was entitled How to Prepare for the Initial IEP Meeting. Okay, so I'm ready to get into the content. Welcome. Whether you're going to trickle in live or watch the replay, it's a pleasure to talk with you today. Happy Thursday. So tonight we'll be talking about how to prepare for the annual IEP meeting. If you see me look down, I just have some notes. So in January, we spoke about the initial meeting, right? That's the eligibility meeting. That's when your child is evaluated by the school psychologist, the speech pathologist, the occupational therapist, perhaps the physical therapist, right? They're observed, you're interviewed, and so there's a determination made as to whether they qualify for special education or whether they don't. And so that's the initial meeting. It only happens one time, that eligibility. Are you qualified for special education or not? It just happens one time. Every year after that, to the date that initial meeting was, a child is entitled to an annual review meeting. Okay? So, for example, if the child is evaluated and the meeting occurs in January of 2024, the initial meeting, that means that the annual then happens in January of 2025. Okay? Now, I just want to make a point. A child is entitled an annual review every year. However, you can always request a meeting in between the yearly meetings. And that's called, in different places, different things, but more or less we can consider that a requested review. So if you notice something changed, or the demands of the class work really highlight a struggle for the child, you may want to meet with the team again to add a service. A child may really be meeting their goals, and you may want to make a whole shift in class placement or take away a service. So a number of things could happen. But when there are program changes in between those 1 year intervals, you can have a meeting. Okay, so the purpose of an annual meeting is to discuss, develop, and review a student's IEP. Discuss, develop, review. Discuss, develop, and review a student's IEP, the existing IEP, and create the new one. Number two, purpose of an annual IEP meeting is that schools are required to hold annual review meetings every year to look at a student's progress, right? I had written in the description for this live that if there are no if we don't look for change, there won't be any changes, right? And so that's how programs kind of continue. I spoke to a mom today and she was really concerned. She said, I don't want my child to begin preschool in special education and for them to continue into high school in special education, right? So if we're really not critically analyzing the IEP and we're not making decisions and changes based on real progress, it really could just continue and continue with very minimal thoughtfulness. Okay. And the third purpose of an annual IEP meeting is for parents to request to communicate with the team. Okay, so the school and the parents are working together to plan a student's special education experience at school. All right, that's the overarching umbrella purpose of the IEP meeting, to be planning and preparing the special education experience at school. Okay, so I have 10 tips that I want to go over with all of you about how you can prepare your best to go into an annual IEP confident and clear and informed right? And have everything ready and know that you're doing the most that you can to get the most out of the meeting, and that you are doing the most you can for your child to get the best special education experience available. So, number one, before you go to the IEP meeting, gather important documents, right? So that may mean the previous IEP, progress reports, homework, report cards, writing samples, and in-class assessments, right? You want to ask for copies of those things throughout the year. Now, it's important for you to keep all those documents together, because your child, if their annual IEP is in the middle of a school year, right, they may be crossing two grades. So you may gather some work from fourth grade and fifth grade, right, to present at the annual IEP. But you want to make sure you get copies and that you gather all those things before the meeting. All right. It's kind of like presenting your evidence, your opinion, your subjective impressions to the team with the documents at hand. You want to look for strengths, limitations, and the new struggles, any new struggles that may emerge through the documents that you've gathered and that you're going to bring to that meeting. Number two, invite allies to your IEP meeting, as well as supporters, right? So it is your legal right to bring somebody with you to the IEP meeting that knows your child very well, right? And that can speak to their personality, who can speak to their strengths, who can speak to their progress, right? So that might be somebody like a neighbor. It could be like a sports coach. Your child does swimming, for example, outside of school, you might want to bring that coach to the IEP meeting. Before the IEP meeting occurs, make sure to meet with that person to be on one accord, okay, before the meeting. So you just kind of want to have a pre-conference before the annual, just so you can agree and really go into that meeting unified, right? Like as a unified front, and be able to speak as well as possible to your child. So tell the school before the meeting, right? You wouldn't want to catch anybody off guard. The purpose is just for you to feel supported and be able to present a very well-rounded perspective of the child. Okay, number three. I'm sorry, I'm going from 10 to 1. So create a list of questions and concerns, okay? So any questions or concerns you have about your child, you may want to bring that, write a list so that you don't forget about things that you just want to know, okay? As children get bigger, middle school and then high school, we don't always have all the answers that we need as parents. And so it's important to write that down, because the communication weakens a little bit before as children get older. So write all your questions down, write all your concerns down, okay? Number 7, understand the goals. Compare previous goals to new goals. Express your concerns and expectations with the IEP team, okay? So really understand the goals. Sometimes these goals are written very jargony, meaning that there's a lot of technical language used for that discipline in the goal. So make sure you understand it. And if you don't, ask a question, all right? Also, the goals are written to be completed in 1 year, okay? So if it seems like a goal that's too big for your child to reach, that's something you may want to talk about at the IEP meeting, at that annual review. And if it seems like something that's too easy, that you know your child will reach before a year, you might want to express that to them too. Now, this is a really important part. Make sure that the goals are prioritized in the right order, okay? We can have really, really good goals written, but if they're not addressed in the right order, then we won't see progress. And so I'll give you an example. I was having an annual meeting sometime in the past 4 weeks. And so there were occupational therapy goals written. And so there were fine motor goals, right? And then there were some self-regulation goals. And the therapist was not on the call, was not in the meeting, but the teacher kind of spoke to what she believed was the goal being worked on. And so that was the fine motor goal, really tracing shapes, right? Making a heart, making a cross. These are the goals that the OT was working on. And so there was a lot of discussion about tantrums and about self-regulation. And so the teacher asked me to take away the fine motor goals. But I didn't, because I told her that they very well may need to be targeted. They are written for a reason and they're important. However, we need to prioritize self-regulation, right? Because if a child can't sit and cannot focus or attend, where are we going? How are we building off of their skills? So make sure, and it wouldn't be written necessarily in the IEP, but ask that question. How are the goals being prioritized? Are they being prioritized in a cumulative manner? Meaning, once the child masters this goal, they can move to the next, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. Okay? Great. Make sure your goals are, make sure the goals on the IEP are aligned with your goals. And so that's really important because as children get older, we have expectations for them, right? Your kids who are in middle school and high school, you may have an expectation for them to clean their room. You may have an expectation for them to make their own breakfast. And so these very important activities of daily living, you want to make sure that in the IEP that they are demonstrating independence, right? And that they're cultivating autonomy in a way that when they get home, cleaning their room and making their breakfast is not strange, okay? So make sure that your own goals for your child are in alignment, more or less, with the goals on the IEP. Great. Number 6, be open-minded and collaborative, okay? And that's really important because I think in some communities and in some school districts, there is a history of minimal trust, right, between families and the schools, and there might be some tension between families and the schools, and so none of that helps in uniting to create this document. So be open-minded. And it could be hard, especially if you were treated a way that you think is unfair, or your child was treated in a way that you think is unfair, or you just don't like the school necessarily, but it's the only option you have. Be open-minded and collaborative. Oftentimes when we demonstrate that we're willing and open to work with someone, that can be perceived very positively. So I would say go in as most positively as you can. Remember that home and school are different and may bring out different challenges. So I've had meetings in the past month with parents who've said, "Oh, well, he doesn't act like that at home, and I've never seen that behavior before," and things of that nature. However, it's important to realize home is comfortable. Home is familiar. For some children, home is one-on-one, right? They may not have other siblings. There may not be other children in the house. And so they get all the attention, and the behavior is then different than what we see at school. At school, there are many more children in the classroom. There's structure and routine most often, and there's a cognitive demand, right? So a child is expected to do things that are hard for them. And so that might bring out, in both environments, that might bring out behaviors that are very different. So remember that as you collaborate. Okay, number 5. So you are the expert on your child, right? You know them the best. Even when I speak to parents during my meetings, and I primarily conduct initial IEP meetings. However, I do conduct annuals too. Um, when I when after we interpret the results of the testing, I always ask parents, um, does this sound like your child? Right? And I ask that because the day of the visit is just a couple hours with a stranger. So I reassure the parent that they are the expert on their child. And so when you go to this IEP meeting, remember that you're the expert on your child. Share your knowledge of your child, their personality, right? Their interests, and their participation in extracurriculars. Those are all really important. And that might be a side, an aspect of your child that other people don't know. So I say be confident in knowing you're the expert on your child and you have a lot to share that other people haven't seen. Okay? Number 4, as we count down, ask for an explanation, right? So I made reference to this before that a lot of the IEP might not be written in very parent-friendly words, right? If you are not familiar with child development or education, some of what's written can be very confusing. So ask for clarification on jargon, right? Discipline-specific words, and ask for clarification on concepts that you don't understand, because it may come up. Ask to take the draft copy home and think about it. So part of the procedural safeguards, which I have in the chat, part of the procedural safeguards say that just because you are participating in the meeting doesn't mean that you agree with the recommendation that is being made, right? So if for example, at an annual meeting, if they want to take away a service or add a service or change a class, and it's all written out in the IEP, just because you sign the attendance to say that you're there doesn't mean that you agree. And also, you don't have to consent right there, okay? You can say, I want to go home, read this over, talk about it with my spouse, and come back, or give you guys a call, all right? So remember that. Ask to take the draft copy home, look over it, and then you can make a decision, right? If there is a change that you're uncomfortable with or that you just need more time to think about. Okay, number 3, as we count down, get your child involved. So starting at age 14, a child is allowed to sit in and participate actively in the IEP, okay? For younger children, ask what's going well in school. So I would say have them get involved, but if they can't participate, you would ask, but talk to them about their IEP, their plan, in an age appropriate way, okay? And so when we do that, when we have children 14 and up participating in the IEP meeting, that really promotes independence, right? And so moms of the special needs community, special needs parents, really worry about that and the trajectory of independence as the child gets older. They wonder, will they be able to do things on their own? Will they be able? And so having them involved in their own plan is a way to promote independence, right? So I would say so that's about 9th grade, I would say that the child should most definitely attend. And as you go through these steps to prepare, they can prepare with you, okay? Describe the outcome of the meeting with your child. Once again, in a very age-appropriate way, right? And discuss any changes. So if there's a change, for example, that the child is now gonna take the bus, right? As a result of the IEP meeting, you need to talk to them about that. You need to get them ready for that transition. If there is a discussion, if there was a recommendation that a service be taken away, right? Don't let them find out first at school. Talk to them about it at home. Do whatever you can to make any changes on the IEP that are going to be reflected through the child's day. Let it be known first. At home, talk about it. Let them process their feelings and tell you how that feels. before the change and after, okay? Number two, as we count down on these 10 tips on how to prepare for an IEP meeting, focus on your child's strengths. And this is so important for a lot of reasons. Highlight the progress that has been made. Teachers, psychologists, professionals should start with the positives, should start with the strength, should start with the gain, right? I'm reading The Gap and the Gain. It's a terrific book. It's on Audibles. But when we have the perspective of strength and we look at how far we've come, it really is a different mindset than when we look at the deficit, okay? And I'll say that, right? Because I'm a speech language pathologist. So I'm trained to look at the deficit. But I'll tell you that we have a mindset shift when we look at the strengths, when we observe and even evaluate the child from their strengths. So focus on your child's strengths. And if nobody else does it in the meeting, of no other team members highlight the strengths, make sure you as the parent highlight the progress that's been made, okay? Use your voice to structure the conversation from a strength-based perspective. And so I really love to encourage parents about the power that they have, the influence that they have, the knowledge that they have of their child. These tips just help you to be focused and organized going into an IEP meeting, but you already have, right? As the child's parent, you already have power and strength. These tips just bring structure to it and help you to go in confident. But use your voice, right? Not to agree with the negative necessarily in the beginning, but to start off the conversation with the progress, with the strength, with the gain, right? Okay, and then number one, as we count down to the number one of how to prepare for an IEP meeting, an annual IEP meeting, keep all documentation in one place, okay? This blew my mind because it's so simple, but it's so important, and it's really a game changer. So I've put in the chat some PDF downloads that you can download and print right from your computer. Create an IEP binder, okay? So the 1, 2, 3, 4 PDFs that I put in the chat are the IEP binder checklist, okay? The school contact list, the IEP goal tracker, and the school communication log. This is amazing. So keeping a binder of every year's IEPs really will be able to help you document the progression of your child's special education experience, okay? Also, the IEP goal tracker will really help you to be able to trace or track the acquisition of goals, right, from year to year to year. I also really like this idea of creating a binder because it keeps everything organized. These little tools like the communication log and the contact list are great, but what I like is that I often meet families who they move from one state to another, right? So as we know from the first live that I did on the initial IEP meeting, IDEA, right, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, right, allows children with special needs to receive special education services in all 50 states, right? So your child will qualify for an IEP in the new place that you move to. But oftentimes, when parents come to me, they'll just have pieces. They'll have a piece of the initial eval and a couple pages from the IEP, and everything's just really disorderly. And so that wastes a lot of time because I have nothing to use to create a comparable. Okay, a comparable is when a child moves to another place, another school district, could be in the same state, but a different school district, could be in a different state. And an officer sits down and really looks at what they had and then what the current school district can offer, right? And so it's really helpful to have everything when that process occurs. So a lot of time is wasted when families move, and just there's nothing has been gathered in together. So that is my number one tip for all of you. Keep all documentation in one place and do that via an IEP binder. Okay. And even if you don't move, everything is still in one place, and you can bring that binder from annual to annual to annual, right? So if next week you have your annual review and your child's in 5th grade, you can turn back and you can speak on the goals that were mastered in 2nd grade, right? You can speak on 3rd grade. You can take a look at the progress, right? And so this binder, right, this being organized this way and having the IEPs from year to year to year and having these tabs really is just helps you as you use your voice, right? Because like I said, use your voice to structure the conversation from a strength-based perspective. So you can literally, before the meeting, highlight all the areas of strength, the progression, right? This was like this, but now it's like this. My child couldn't do this in 2nd grade, but by 3rd grade, they were able to. And so as you use your voice, right, to promote your child and to highlight and present their progress, you have evidence and documentation, right, written by the school district of what they were able to do and not able to do. Okay, so this really is just for your benefit and empowers you as you walk into that annual review meeting. So I love it. I have these documents in the chat. Okay, if you are joining in the replay, please watch this over again to catch all those points. I will, if I get some good feedback, put them into another PDF. I just love this. I think these 10 tips are valuable. They're gold. Going forward in my meetings, I'm going to make a lot of these recommendations to parents just so that they are empowered and fortified as they walk in. Okay, so if there is any questions, please put them in the comments now. I want to talk about 2 things. So Saturday is our 2nd session of the winter webinar series. We'll be talking about neurolinguistics and cultural diversity. So I know here in our community, right, this Facebook group for communication resources for kids with children with special needs, we have some bilingual families represented here. And then I know some of you have friends, right, and family. There are other Facebook groups that I'm active in of families who speak one language, have one cultural heritage, but have moved to another place and are embracing a new culture, and they would like to understand bilingualism. So you still have time to register at Eventbrite. It's in the feed somewhere, the link, but please do register. You will learn a lot. I promise you have nothing to lose by joining in, okay? Next thing that I want to talk about, that I want to introduce that is very exciting, is our study and self-reflection. So I've done some research. I've talked to special needs parents. I speak to the parents of special needs children every single day, multiple times a day. I am active in many different Facebook groups between New York and Connecticut, and some just general ones where people from all over are a part of. And I'm really recognizing that the autism parent community needs support. And so I want to explore that more, and I want to be able to offer something to parents of children who are on the spectrum, right? So we are going to, for the month of March, listen up, for the month of March, we are going to be reading as a group the Autism Moms Survival Guide. The Autism Moms and Dads Too, for Dads Too, Survival Guide by Susan Senator, okay? This is a fabulous book, a fabulous, fabulous book. Susan Senator is a mom of a special needs child. Her son is on the spectrum. He's like grown up now, but she really highlights her experiences raising him and just being a part of the special needs community. She also has interviewed many families. They welcomed her into their home, and she was able to interview them and get larger perspective of what it is to be an autism parent, right? And I use that term endearingly. So what we're gonna do for the month of March, and I do recognize that April is Autism Awareness Month. We will do something else to honor that. But I believe that parents need help now, okay? So what we're going to do for the month of March is I will be on Facebook Live every Thursday. There are 4 Thursdays in the month of March, okay? You hear me? There are 4 Thursdays in the month of March. There are 8 chapters in this book, okay? There are 8 chapters in this book. We are going to collapse the chapters so that for each Thursday in March, we are covering 2 chapters, okay? I'm gonna read to you the chapters. No, chapter 1, it's all how you look at it. The gift of perspective. Chapter 2, surviving the great autism, therapy chase. Chapter 3, spending time with our kids and enjoying it. Chapter 4, me, myself, and I. Why self-care is essential, okay? So that chapter 1 and chapter 2, we're gonna cover in one Thursday. That chapter 3 and chapter 4, we're gonna cover in the next Thursday, okay? Chapter 5, improving our love lives. Yes, that's important too, to the moms who have spoken to me about their marriage in the midst of raising children who are on the spectrum, children with special needs. That is in this book. So that's chapter 5. Chapter 6, moving beyond you and me against the world, getting help from others. So that chapter 5 and chapter 6, we are going to collapse into the 3rd Thursday of March. Chapter 7, letting go when our kids leave home. In chapter 8, looking towards the future, independence and advocacy. So that chapter 7 and chapter 8 will be covered the last Thursday of March, okay? And so we're going to get through this book. In addition to reading, getting on Facebook Live, reading and summarizing it, I will have some self-reflection questions for you all, some PDFs, so you can go to the chat, download those questions, read them, process them, think on them, meditate on them, ponder on them, okay? Even write out your responses. Go as far to write out your responses in a journal, okay? And we will discuss, okay? So I think that this is really gonna impact a lot of lives. I think that there are a lot of questions. I think it's really evocative, if I could say so. I think there's a lot of emotions and feelings in this. I have an excerpt to read, and this is raw. I wrote wow in the margins of some of this, okay? So, this is real. This is real life. This is some of the topics that are spoken on. I'm going to read just a little excerpt to help you. Kathleen says, it just felt hopeless. I sat there looking at him, and there was nothing I could do or say to help him calm down. I loved him, and yet I also hated him, and I felt horrible for hating him. There he was, all of 4.5 years old. And in my head, I was wishing him away. I locked myself in the bathroom and just cried. Okay, so there's a lot, and this is true. So I'd like you to get your copy. Amazon, Walmart, all book retailers, it's there. The only thing that I have to say, and I'm not endorsing any retailer over the other, that's not what I want to do. But I am a mom too, and I really enjoy Audibles. Okay, because it's really sometimes it's easy to listen to books and move around. This is not on Audibles. I just have to tell you, please get your book. We are starting March 7th. Let me just check my calendar one more time because I did write it down. I want to give you Yep, we are starting March 7th, okay? So you have until March 6th to get your books, okay? Please get your copy. The Autism Mom's Survival Guide by Susan Senator, okay? This is our book for March. It's going to be a blessing. It's going to be amazing. You are going to unlock a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, a lot of perspectives that you knew and didn't know that you had. So I think that's going to be great. Please join our winter webinar on Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can email me if you have questions about the book or the website, or the webinar. Okay. This was a pleasure. I really enjoyed getting on. Please download those resources for your next IEP meeting, and I will see you soon. Have a very good night. Happy Thursday, and tomorrow is Friday, so I'll say yay. Take care, everybody. Bye.